There are so many different roadblocks that someone can hit on their journey of feeling better and moving better. But there's one thing in particular that I think deserves its own video, that if you have this, or this is a huge influence on you in particular, then this needs to be addressed because it will likely restrict your progress until it's taken care of. A lot of what I discuss has to do with the pelvis and the rib cage, these two big structures within our body. But you could also have an influence from the top down, meaning your head, your cranium, your cervical spine can be sort of in a position that's influencing these other bigger structures. And if you have something here, which is a significant influence, then you could be doing all the work down here. You could be doing everything perfectly, but it's not actually going to stick, or you're going to struggle to make a change because your head, your cranium, your cervical spine is basically locking you in a position. Think about it like this. If my jaw, and this is just one example, my jaw is deviated to the left, then I'm going to have basically this whole sort of chain reaction down. So if this thing's going one way, I'm gonna have something in my cervical spine or cranium going the other way, and then I might have my shoulder be lower and dropped on one side, and then I might have my spine rotated to the other direction, and it can just feed all the way down the chain because everything really is connected. I don't like to go here immediately with people, but within my assessment, I'm taking that into account, what I see when I look at what's going on right here. But it can also be from the bottom up. So you can have something at the foot that's twisted in one direction, leading to a bunch of different twists up the body that could be influencing even the head. Now, how do you know? Now, I understand how that can be a little bit demoralizing to hear, but don't worry, don't fret. There are a couple of steps that you can take and a couple of tests that you can do. Now, the first thing I'm going to do, regardless of who I'm working with, is I'm going to try to get a change with the basics. That would be things through like my beginner body restoration program. And if I know they're doing it right, which execution is by far the #1 thing people are going to struggle with. If they're doing things right, and I know that, and I retest them, and I don't get a change in a couple of exercises, and I go down my list of exercises that I think are going to be right for this person, if I try, 5 or more things and nothing's really budging, then I'm going to start to think that it's either a bottom up or top down influence. I'm going to look at the foot first. That means I might need to get them in a different pair of shoes, or give their arch some support, or give their foot some reference they need to be able to integrate the foot with the hip, with the shoulder, with the head. And that's usually the first step. So shoe wear is probably where I'm going to look first if I'm struggling to make a change with someone, or some foot specific intervention. Now, that usually does the trick for most people. I have a separate video on that in shoe wear, which I'll link up above. If I can't get a change with even the shoe wear, then I'll do this test to determine whether or not they have a significant influence of their cranium or their cervical spine, or potentially even their dental system, which I know sounds crazy, but really it's important to appreciate that all these things can influence each other. So I will do this test. I will put them in a stance position, meaning I'll have them lean over to one side of the body and shift into the hemisphere for, say, for example, their left side, and I'll have them do this. And if I get a bigger change, and a significant change, more so than anything else that we try, then I'm pretty sure I'm on the right path for knowing what the root cause of this person's issues are. What I'm gonna have them do in this test is I'm gonna have them, like I mentioned, shift over to, let's say, most usually, because we're naturally asymmetrical and over on the right side, I'm gonna have them shift into their left side. So that means that they're gonna pull their left hip back, they're gonna lean on their left side, their ribs are gonna come down on the left side, and their head is going to be side bent to the right side very slightly. This is what happens when we shift over to the left. If I shift it right, the opposite would happen. So what this represents is stance phase of gait on that side. So our molars right here are basically like the heels of our upper body, meaning that they're what ground us and help give us a sense of being grounded on that side when we shift into it. I'm going to be taking several other assessments before we run this test. I'm going to want to know what their shoulder range of motion is, their internal, external rotation. I'm going to want to know what their shoulder flexion is. I'm going to want to know what their straight leg raise is, and also their Ober's test. Yes, even their hip measurements can be affected by what we're about. So we're just going to get a couple of different tests here on Trevor to show you the difference that this can have on someone. So we'll start with his upper body, his shoulders. So I'll have Trevor scoot towards this edge of the table. I'm going to grab some basic shoulder stuff right here. His shoulder internal rotation is right about there. Shoulder external rotation right about there. And if we check his shoulder flexion right here, say right about in there. All right, now let's test his hips. So I'll have him go to the middle of the table. We're going to go here, straight leg raise, right about there. We can check his other one too, just for fun. That one's a little tighter. And let's check his internal and external rotation. So he's done, I'd say probably about 15 degrees here. External rotation is about 25 to 30 degrees. What we're going to do to set up here is get ourselves a popsicle stick, or if you don't have a popsicle stick, you can use something like a business card folded in half. You just want something that you can bite down on and sense your back molar contact without it being really soft. So it needs to have a little bit of stiffness. About the stiffness of a popsicle stick is great, and also about the thickness of it as well. So we're going to start in this standing hip width parallel stance, and all we're going to do is just put one foot in front of the other. If we're going to test the left side, we want the right foot about a half step in front. So we want to get a little bit further than that, right about there, with the toes in line with sort of the front of the heel in this front leg right here. And then what we're going to do is bend our knees, get a little soft bend in both knees, about 10 to 15% of a knee bend. And we're going to shift our weight onto that back heel. So that's going to be the left heel in this instance right here. And we're going to make sure our hips are nice and neutral. So if our pelvis was a bowl of water, it's not spilling out the front too much, or the back. It's nice and parallel. So you might have to cue your clients to really feel that nice, even pelvis and bowl of water right there. So now what we'll do is we'll take the popsicle stick and we'll put it in our back left teeth, or the side that's back. And we just want to feel a little bit of occlusion, or the back molars, those furthest back teeth there, touching the popsicle stick. They're obviously not going to be touching each other, but there should be some contact on both sides pressing into that popsicle stick. About a 3 out of 10 is all you need. Should be pretty chill. Now what we're going to do, sensing that left heel, keeping our pelvis nice and neutral, we're just going to gently reach down with the left arm. Very gently. It's very easy for people to extend their back as they do this or reach down too much. Again, just about a 2 out of 10 is all you need. That should help you feel these ribs come down a little bit. Our eyes need to stay straight ahead, so it's going to be like we're side bent a little bit towards that left side, because we are. So to summarize, what we're going to feel is slightly staggered stance. Weight 2/3 to 3/4 is in this foot right here, focusing on the heel. Soft knee bend, and we're just going to reach down a little bit like this. We have that thing in between our molars and the back teeth, and we're just going to breathe in through our nose, out through our nose for about 5 breaths. The most common mistake on this test by far is that people are going to end up kind of going into this sway back posture as they lean back on that heel right there, and their shin is going to go really forward like that. It's a shift rather than a lean. So think about shifting 2/3 of your body weight onto this back foot, but a lot of it is in the heel, and you want to stay tall and your ribs are down like that. And that's the position we want to be in, because a lot of people, when they do this, are going to end up doing that. So make sure you think shift back, keeping that pelvis, if it was a bowl of water, nice and neutral. The other common mistake here is that people are going to have too wide or too far forward of a stance. So make sure that you're hip width apart, and then you've got sort of like a half step forward is what you're looking for there. And the last thing is, make sure with the popsicle stick, don't shove it too far back in your mouth there. The back of it should be where your molars back here are biting down. All right, so we just went through that. Let's check out his shoulder now. I'll have you scoot towards that edge of the table. Let's grab this right here. That's pretty good change. That's nice and easy now too. Let's go right here. So right about there is where I'm feeling the resistance now. Now let's check his lower body. Let's check this straight leg raise. That's around the same, I would say. And let's check this right one. Feels like there's less tension, but I don't know if there's a big difference there, but it looks like it was around the same. So we got a nice upper body change. Lower body is around the same. But let's check the hip internal and external rotation too. Let's go right here. Got about 10 degrees more, I would say. And yeah, about 10 degrees more on each side. So depending on Trevor and what changes we got with other exercises, if he got a nice change like we got right there and not much else could give him that change, then that would be an indication that this might be a consideration for him. The other context in which this is really important to consider is if I can't get a change to stick. So let's say I have someone come in, I do some of the more basic stuff, we get a great change, I get them where I want them, and then I know they're keeping up with their exercises. I'll make sure they're doing them right the next time they come in, because a lot of the times they'll come in, they're not doing their exercises right, their tests have all reverted back to where they were when they first came in. So I'll check their exercise, make sure they're doing it right. Most of the time they're not, so that needs to be taken care of first. But if they are, and this keeps happening, they keep reverting, again, I'm gonna look at the shoe wear and the foot. And then I'm gonna run this test again. And I'm gonna see if, okay, is potentially something up here locking them in their patterning. I have a case study coming up with exactly this type of person. So that'll be really helpful for you to see it integrated in a live real setting. But if this is you, then this is not something you can fix yourself in most cases. I would recommend that you reach out to someone who is trained within these things, and I will link down below a link with a map of practitioners who all are likely able to help you with this and can set you on the right path. The last thing I want to make abundantly clear is that this is not everyone. So many people are going to read into this too much and think that this is where all of their problems are, when it's really not, and they just need the right basic exercises for them. Please be sure that you need this before pursuing it. And it also doesn't hurt just to reach out to someone within your area who knows what they're doing, because self-diagnosis is not really the best way to go in almost any circumstance. So you can run this test, and many people will see a positive change regardless, but it only really matters when you've already checked the other boxes and you can't really get a change or a change to stick, but this gives you a really good change. So hopefully that helps. Check out the map below if you want more information to see if someone can help you with this, and I'll see you next time.